ब्रैम्पटन ਦੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਪੈਟਰਿਕ ਬਰਾਊਨ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਔਰ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਓਨਟਾਰੀਓ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਰਹਿ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ ਬਿਲ ਡੇਵਿਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਮੇਅਰ ਬਰਾਊਨ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਸੀ ਪਲੱਸ
Thank you for having me on, Parvasi, and it's certainly a tough day for our city, losing a giant in Canadian politics, in the former Premier Bill Davis.
Right, and he was a premier for a long time, and he expired peacefully at his cottage at age 92, which was just because of his health was okay. It was just the old age that he expired at 92, and he served Canada for a long time, from 1971 to 1985 as the Premier of Ontario, and he was well respected by all the parties. And we understand that you were also very close to Premier Davis.
Yeah, he was a dear friend and someone that I considered a mentor. And, you know, when I look at his legacy, he created the first Ministry of the Environment in North America. He was an environmentalist before it was fashionable. He appointed the first woman ever to be in Ontario cabinet, in Margaret Burt. She was a feminist and a women's rights advocate before it was common amongst senior leaders in Canada. And he worked across party lines with the former Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, to get the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms entrenched into the Canadian Constitution. That would not have happened in 1982 if it wasn't for that partnership between the Premier and the Prime Minister that put partisan allegiances aside for the best interest of Canadians. So the legacy he leaves is enormous. And I can tell you, having spent time with him, he is genuinely a gentleman. He is kind, generous. He oozes decency.
And on top of that, he was a proud Bramptonian.
He lived all his 92 years on Main Street in Brampton. He passed away on Main Street in Brampton, where he was born, and he loved our city. Wherever he went in the world, he talked about Brampton being the center of the universe. He used to mention Brampton 9 or 10 times in his speeches when he was Premier of Ontario, and I can tell you, I certainly wouldn't be mayor of Brampton today if it wasn't for his support and his friendship and his encouragement. There's so many people that owe a debt of gratitude to him. I know the mayor of Toronto as well. Wouldn't be where he is today if it wasn't for Bill Davis. And many of us, I think the word I would use is revere. We revere the extraordinary leader that he was.
And when we work in politics, it's what natural that you get involved in many controversies. But I believe people from all over the places, all over other parties, across the party lines, he was one of the most respected politicians we have in this country.
He was an icon, and I think for years to come, he will be considered the bar to be compared to. He is the gold standard in public service, and for those of us who got to know him, for those of us that got to watch him in Brampton, we had a greater insight into Bill Davis than others. It was just we're so fortunate in Brampton to have in our midst someone that was a true national hero.
Okay. Yeah, and there is a school also in Brampton named after him, William G. Davis.
I'm sure there'll be many more streets and schools named after him. Yeah. I think he's going to go down in the history books as one of the pivotal Canadian leaders that helped forge the modern Canada that we know today.
Okay, and while we're talking about politics, Mayor, we are expecting announcement of federal elections anytime soon. Brampton will have activities like previous elections. Any strategy from your side, being the mayor of Brampton? What do you expect from the politicians at this time?
Well, the city of Brampton will certainly be raising issues that are important to us, and we'll be hopeful that the candidates for Prime Minister will pay attention to our ask and will support our ask, and we will be talking about those more in the weeks to come once the federal election is called.
Okay, and last thing before you go, that's particularly about this spreading of COVID again, rising in the numbers again. We have done well in vaccination, but fourth wave is again knocking at our doors.
So I'm not worried about this fourth wave, Rajinder. You know why? Because we have high vaccination levels. And when we've had waves before, it's been with an unvaccinated population, which led to significant hospitalization and overcrowded ICUs. And now we're in a position where if we have a fourth wave, it's not going to be it'll be very timid, because it won't lead to hospitalizations. It won't lead to overcrowded ICUs. So as much as there may be some doom and gloom in the media about what if we have a fourth wave, I'm not worried. The vaccines are going to do exactly what we expected them to do, and that's protect us from severe cases of COVID. For those that get COVID in the fourth wave, they will be very, very mild.
Also, the schools are going to be in person from September onwards. Is there going to be any testing about the vaccines that the students who have gotten their vaccines, they are going to go in person or something like that, some kind of protocol established at schools?
Well, that will be up to the province, whether they're or the federal government, whether there'll be vaccine requirements. But what I would say is the vast majority of students in high school are now vaccinated, and as soon as Health Canada approves vaccines for those under 12, I imagine, when that time comes, there'll be a large uptake for the younger students as well. But if you look at where the transmission was happening in the previous waves, it wasn't really in elementary school. It was more commonly in high school, and now our high school students are largely vaccinated. Our educators are now all vaccinated, so we've made great progress.
Okay, thank you so much, Mayor. As I said, most of Bramptonians are already vaccinated, but still we have to go a long way before we finish this pandemic.
Well, I think we're through the toughest parts. Now that we have a vaccinated population, I believe we're on the path to getting back to normal.
Okay, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much.
ਇਹ ਸਨ ਮੇਅਰ ਪੈਟਰਿਕ ਬਰਾਊਨ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਕੌਨਫੀਡੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੱਗ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਡਰਨ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਫੋਰਥ ਵੇਵ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਪਾਏਗੀ ਜੇ ਆਈ ਵੀ, ਜਿੰਨਾ ਥਰਡ ਵੇਵ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂ ਸੈਕੰਡ ਵੇਵ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ। ਅਪ ਟੂ ਸਮ ਐਕਸਟੈਂਟ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਸਟਿਲ ਐਗਰੀ ਟੂ ਹਿਮ, ਬਟ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਭੁੱਲਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡੈਲਟਾ ਵੇਰੀਐਂਟ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਬੜਾ ਖਤਰਨਾਕ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੇਸਿਸ ਐਸੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਲਗਵਾ ਵੀ ਲਏ, ਦੋਨੋਂ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਲਗਵਾ ਵੀ ਲਏ, ਪਰ ਡੈਲਟਾ ਵੇਰੀਐਂਟ ਕਰਕੇ, ਵਾਇਰਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨੀਆਂ ਆਉਣੀਆਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈਆਂ। ਤਾਂ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਓਵਰ ਕੌਨਫੀਡੈਂਟ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਈਏ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੀ ਦੋ ਵੈਕਸੀਨ ਲੱਗ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹੈ। ਸਟਿਲ ਵੀ ਨੀਡ ਟੂ ਟੇਕ ਆਲ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੀਕॉशंस। जब तक ये खत्म ना हो जाए पैंडेमिक, सानू उतना ही सजग रहना चाहिए है।
जी हाँ, और बहुत ज़्यादा कंटेजियस है डेल्टा वेरिएंट, जिस तरह पहले भी दस्सिया कि चिकन पॉक्स वकन फैल रहा है, और प्रीडोमिनेंट वेरिएंट है इस वेले पूरे इंटीरियर ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਚਣ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ। ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੇ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਪਸ ਪਰਤਣਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਹੋਰ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਬਾਰੇ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅਵੇਅਰਨੈਸ ਰੱਖਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ, ਔਰ ਇਸ ਪੂਰੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੋਕੋਲ ਨੂੰ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੇਫਲੀ ਇਸ ਫੋਰਥ ਵੇਵ ਚੋਂ ਵੀ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਿਕਲ ਆਈਏ।